Hello, welcome to the Roundtable. Which news shocked the world? You can figure it out at the Roundtable with our experts. Today, we are joined by Professor Choi Hyun-jin. Welcome to the Roundtable, Professor Choi.
Thank you for having me again.
We are also joined by Professor Kim Hena. Welcome.
Glad to be back.
The world pay attention to this shocking news that incumbent president and the Democrat Party's presidential candidate Joe Biden announced his withdrawal from the presidential race Monday, Korea time. Of course, he has been reportedly under mounting pressure for withdrawal since his disastrous performance in the first presidential debate in June. But since he has insisted upon finishing the race, this announcement came as a shocking news. Professor Kim, what is the reaction in the United States to his announcement of the stepping down?
I think right now the atmosphere is one of a bit of political chaos and panic on both sides because it did come very suddenly. From the Democratic side, many have praised his leadership up until now, and a lot seem grateful for all that he has done to protect America and to uphold American democracy. But also at the same time, many Democrats have also shown relief, right? There, as you mentioned earlier, many have been calling on Biden to exit the race, including Nancy Pelosi. And so many believe that this is the best decision for not just the party, but also the country as well. And for the Republicans, political leaders, not just Trump, but also Vance, McConnell, DeSantis, they're all basically attacking and criticizing Biden. And there are also conspiracy theories that are showing up. So it's very early on right now. So right now it's one of a bit of chaos.
Very chaotic. So, Professor Choi, it has been known that he has been under tremendous amount of pressure from fellow Democrats and donors, but he was very insistent upon finishing the race. So what led to his decision all of a sudden to withdraw from the race?
There are some key reasons. Actually, he started his campaign quite confidently, arguing that he is the best choice to defeat Trump. But however, after a debate, there's growing concern about his mental sharpness and age among American people. So let me give you some example. At the NATO summit on July 11, the Biden made a couple of embarrassing mistakes. He referred to Kamala Harris as Vice President Trump.
Right.
And also he mixed up Ukraine President Zelensky with President Putin.
Right.
And also the TV debate with Donald Trump was very tough for Biden as well. He struggled to speak clearly and jumbling his words and also pausing frequently. And when discussing the national debt, he incorrectly said, "We finally beat Medicare." Right.
Not the COVID-19.
Right.
I remember this.
And Donald Trump quickly responded, "Well, he's right. We did beat Medicaid, and he's destroying Medicare." Right. And this mistake cost some influential Democrats like former President Obama and also the former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, suggested that the Biden should be replaced. And also, there is a famous Hollywood star, George Clooney. He is a longtime supporter and fundraiser for Biden. And even he wrote an opinion column in newspaper and urged him to step down. I think these are some of the key reasons why he decided to withdraw from his race.
Professor Kim, when Democratic Party changed the presidential candidate near the election day, like in 1952 and 1968, and when the Democratic Party was greatly divided with the candidates and the rivals in 1980 between Jimmy Carter and Edward Kennedy, Democratic Party always lost the election.
Yeah, that's true. But right now, I think that there are so many other things that are happening, especially with the assassination attempt against Trump, with more increasing polarization. And as you mentioned, this is the first time since Lyndon B. Johnson where a sitting president has decided to step down from a second term. And so in many ways, I think this election, there are too many variables that are taking place right now for us to say for sure. But we do know that Biden has endorsed endorsed Kamala Harris. We also know that Bill and Hillary Clinton have endorsed Kamala Harris. As of now, President Barack Obama has not endorsed anybody, but it does seem as though that most of the Democratic politicians are kind of pushing and trying to support Kamala Harris right now. And in that sense, right now, because of the support that Kamala Harris has been getting, Trump and the Republican Party are now framing the resignation of Biden to be advantageous for them. You know, they have made not just criticisms and attacks towards Biden, but they've also criticized Kamala Harris as well. And they're making it seem as though it is easier to beat Harris more so than it is to beat Biden. And so in many ways, we don't know what's going to happen within the next few months. We don't know who the actual Democratic candidate is going to be. We also don't know what's going to happen in the next presidential election. But right now, it does seem as though there's a bit more chaos and panic in the Democratic side.
But don't you think that Republican Party members would prefer to have Joe Biden as an opponent in this presidential election as opposed to, say, Kamala Harris or somebody else?
Right, but I think what part of the things that the Republican Party is saying right now is that Harris is easier to attack and criticize because Harris and Biden have had similar policies. And if anything, Harris's policies are more progressive than Biden's. And so in many ways, it helps create this more of this divide. Also, if Harris does become the next Democratic candidate and she becomes the next president, she would be the first female, not just African, but African American and South Asian president. So in many ways, she just has a very different demographic in terms of her support as well.
Would it be advantageous to Kamala Harris in comparison with Donald Trump in this race?
In terms of support?
Appealing to the young voters and the Hispanic and Black voters and female voters as well.
Right, I think in terms of representation, she can be there's going to be a lot of support for her. And even in terms of her policies, especially in relation to immigration, it's so different from Trump. So in that sense, I do think that she will have a following. But as we've been talking about, polarization in the US is so strong that there are going to be a large group of young voters supporting whoever the Democratic candidate will be, but also a large group of young voters who are going to be supporting Trump. So we're just going to see this divide growing.
Professor Che, so now Democrat Party has to start it all over again, although Joe Biden nominated Kamala Harris that he supports and give her full endorsement. But what would be the procedure for the Democratic Party to officially nominate a new candidate in the presidential election?
If there is no contender, in the Kamala Harris is sole candidate, it is highly likely that she will be the official nominee for the upcoming election in the Democratic National Convention, which is scheduled to take place in Chicago from August 19 through 22nd. So there is no strong reason that delegate will oppose this endorsement from Joe Biden. Right? But however, there's another scenario. If there are other candidates participate in this process, they will need to be voted on at the convention in Chicago, right? And to win, the candidate must get the majority of a vote from about 4,700 delegates, right? And most of these delegates were originally committed to support Joe Biden, but his resignation means that they are now free to choose anyone, right? So although Biden has endorsed Kamala Harris, but he cannot force these delegates to support Kamala Harris at this convention, right? So the key variable that affects the future course of this choosing nominee at the convention is whether other candidates, such as the governor of Pennsylvania or Michigan or even Michelle Obama, right? Whether they will participate or not.
Right. Now, interesting names are floating around as a potential participant in the a presidential candidate race against Kamala Harris, but we have to wait and see. So, Professor Kim, let me go back to the previous question, whether withdrawal of Joe Biden is a good thing or bad thing for the Republican Party with Mr. Donald Trump as its official presidential candidate.
So as we mentioned earlier, right now Trump and the Republican Party have immediately responded after Biden has stepped down, and Trump's reaction tends to be one that's focusing on insulting his opponents. And so, immediately after, he called Biden crooked Biden, and he said that he was not fit to run for president and never was. He called him the worst president in history, the one who destroyed the country. But he also has stated that he believes Kamala to be less competent, right? And so it seems as though immediately Trump and the Republican Party have been reacting by criticizing both Biden and Harris. And Vance has also echoed some of these words, but also Donald Trump's son, Donald Trump Jr., stated that Harris is less competent. So in many ways, they're framing it now as though Biden has stepped down, and since Kamala is the next potential Democratic candidate, they're focusing on attacking her as well. So it seems as though they're just trying to focus on attacking and criticizing at the moment.
What would be the implications of these changes in the U.S. presidential election to U.S. foreign policy and national security in the future?
This event may affect the future relationship between the United States and North Korea. And that's why I think maybe North Korea is very anxious about this news about Biden's resignation.
Because Kim Jong-un has been counting on return of Trump, right?
Right. So to explain this, let me introduce what Donald Trump said about Kim Jong-un lately. He mentioned that he had a very good relationship with Kim Jong-un, saying that I'm sure he's waiting for me to come back, and maybe Kim Jong-un wants to see me. And Trump also highlighted the importance of getting along with the leaders who have a significant nuclear capability. So if Trump were re-elected, there's a high possibility that he and Kim could pick up discussion following the 3 summit meetings during his first term.
Right.
And also, in contrast, the Vice President Kamala Harris has been openly critical of North Korea. For example, in 2022, when she visited DMZ, the Panmunjom, she said like that, the North Korea is a brutal dictatorship with widespread human rights violation and an illegal weapons program that poses a threat to the global peace. And she emphasized that U.S. aims for a world free from North Korean threats. So let's compare these 2 different remarks, right? They are very different, and therefore I guess Kim Jong-un is really very interested in the potential impact of this Biden's resignation on the odds of Trump coming back to his office. And also I'm sure that he likely prefers the Trump's winning this next election over Kamala Harris or other candidates.
Yeah, I completely agree with Professor Choi, because this is going to become an issue in North-South Korea relations, and so both South Korea and Japan are also going to be very much affected by the election outcomes. Also, Ukraine, NATO, we have so many different parts of the world that are going to be highly affected. But I also think that domestically in America, this will play a big role. According to the polls, it actually shows that Kamala Harris and Trump are very close in terms of the polling. So according to YouGov, Harris would get 48% of the votes, whereas Trump would get around 51%. And according to NPR, Harris would get around 50% of the votes and Trump would get around 49%. So it's too close to call at the moment, but depending on who is potentially the next president, Ukraine, NATO, China, North Korea, South Korea, Japan, I think the list goes on and on and on.
Right. So now it has become even more important for both Democratic Party presidential candidate and Mr. Donald Trump to win those swing states, especially those states in the Rust Belt like Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. Right? It will be affecting the choice of running mate for the next new Democratic Party presidential candidate.
Yeah, so I think if Kamala Harris is the Democratic candidate, then potential vice presidents include Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, as well as Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, and California Governor Gavin Newsom, among others.
And the Arizona Senator Mark Kelly as well as candidate, right? We have to focus on the future of the swing states in this election. Let's move to the next topic. We're going to analyze a new trend in the consumer market. How do you beat the sweltering weather during the summertime? There are people who try to defeat the heat during the summertime by heat. Let's visit them with a video clip.
Phenomenal popularity of baseball. Unprecedented numbers of spectators. Usually, baseball games attract more spectators in May when most teams still have hopes to advance to the postseason. The number of baseball fans in the stands begins declining from June with the rainy season and summer heat setting in. But this year is different. The per-game average attendance stood at 14,000 in May. In June, it rose to 15,000, propelling the first-off tally to exceed 6 million for the first time in history. Korea's Professional Baseball League is poised to record an accumulated attendance of 10 million. What is behind this enormous popularity? In addition to baseball's enduring, timeless allure as a sport, other factors include the relatively low admission fees and the atmosphere for fans to get together and enjoy the game on the scene. Ballparks attract fans with various events, foods and services, like a barbecue zone and a kids' playroom.
일단은 응원하는 문화 자체가 거기서 함께 응원하면 좀 소속감도 들고 재밌는 것 같아서 하는 것도 있는 것 같고요. 가격대도 사실 자주 오기에 크게 부담스럽지 않은 가격이기 때문에 더 자주 오게 되는 것 같아요.
In the past, baseball fans in the stands were mostly middle-aged men, but it has significantly changed. Women in their 20s are leading the current pro-baseball boom. At the Sky Dome in Seoul, roars of female fans resounded through the giant ballpark. Among new fans for the Kiwoom Heroes last year, women accounted for 93.2% and men 9.7%. Among 10 professional baseball teams, the Kiwoom Heroes has the largest number of female fans with 72.3% of female fans continuing to visit ballparks. Young star players are another factor that brings women to the ballpark.
제가 먼저 야구를 좋아하게 돼서 여자친구를 입덕시켰어요.
이정우가 잘생겼어요.
작년에 입학해가지고 요즘 더 많이 좋아하는 것 같아요. 야구장 가면은 이렇게 SNS 올리잖아요. 그러면은 야구장 가는 거 재밌냐고 물어보는 친구도 많아지기도 했고
아무래도 선수들을 좀 더 가까이서 볼 수 있는 기회가 많다 보니까 야구를 좋아하게 된 것 같습니다. 좋아하는 선수의 뭐 특별한 굿즈가 나온다고 하면 사고 하는
저는 김동원 선수 좋아합니다.
저는 주승우 선수 좋아합니다.
Transcending just being a venue to watch baseball games, ballparks are evolving to become a space encouraging all people to participate and enjoy. The past record attendance the Korean Professional Baseball League posted in a season was 8.4 million. All eyes are on whether or not it will be able to set a new record this season.
It feels like I was at a ballpark too. Professors, I believe you are a baseball fan. Professor Kim, you confessed last time that you were LA Dodgers fan, right?
I am an LA Dodgers fan,
Right.
yes.
Do you still follow baseball?
I follow Shohei Ohtani.
Oh, okay, all right, great. How about you, Professor Chen?
I love baseball a lot. I'm a big fan of LG Twins.
In Korea, right?
In Korea,
and
right.
That's based in Seoul, the capital city.
Seoul,
right?
professional team in Seoul.
Okay. So, Professor Kim, why are these young women so into sports event, becoming avid fans? So this is such a great trend. Very interesting.
Right, and it kind of contrasts from the female fans in the US and Europe, especially because now women in their 20s and 30s in South Korea occupy more than half the seats in baseball. You know, women account for 63% of high involvement fans, according to the Korea Professional Sports Association. I think there are many different reasons for this. One has to do with the environment of the sports stadiums. They're actually quite safe, you know, especially compared to sports stadiums in different countries. And so women feel less scared to walk outside at night. Also, they're cleaner. Baseball used to be considered an old man sport, but it's no longer that case anymore. So it's kind of created its own culture. But also, the fandom in baseball is also very similar to that of K-pop. And so, you know, fans send coffee trucks to their favorite baseball players. They come early in the morning to see their favorite players. They're also purchasing a lot of their goods. And also, in terms of baseball, there's a high appeal in terms of cost effectiveness. It's much more affordable than a concert, you know, by a K-pop idol or even a play or something. And so in that sense, it's more affordable, and that's why I think there's also a growing appeal of this.
It is not limited to sports. Young women in South Korea have emerged as a new force and trendsetters in all kinds of consumption. So, Professor Che, what accounts for this phenomenon?
So thanks to better education and also more economic opportunities and greater participation in society, the female labor force participation rate continues to increase in South Korea. And also furthermore, this change is also shaking up the consumer market because of the rising purchasing power of a woman.
Professor Kim, you know this very well because you meet young college students on a daily basis. Is there any different styles or appetite in terms of the consumption habits between young males and young females?
So there's definitely some overlap, but also there are some distinctions. And so according to the fintech company Habit Factory, they revealed an analysis of card spending of around 10,000 consumers in their 20s and 30s. And what they found is that young women spend more on shopping, on medical and health expenses, and cultural activities, whereas men tend to spend more on transportation and cars, as well as financial services.
Okay. On the other hand, I read a news report that young women are not only active consumers, but also take great interest in savings and investment. So they are very savvy investors. Professor Che, can you call this a new phenomenon or just a one-time thing?
I think this is a new phenomenon that is related to so-called MZ generation in South Korea. However, their spending habits can be quite contradictory, or they can look contradictory to old generation like me.
Okay.
And for example, they might often eat alone at convenience store, but sometimes they visit hotspot to spend the time with the friends. And the key reason why they don't spare money on eating with the friends is because of the precious relationship. And let me give you just another example. They sometimes change their cell phone plan to the cheapest one, and also only turn on the heating when they need to shower to save money. But however, they don't hesitate to spend on limited edition items from their favorite pop star because they see this as a way to show support for their idol. So how can we explain this contradictory spending habit of MZ generation? So I think that the key reason behind this trend is the uncertain future. So economic downturns during coronavirus pandemic, and also the population decline, and also rising housing prices have left many young people feeling unsure about their future. But despite this uncertainty, they just don't sit back and worry. And they are saving money and investing in their personal development to prepare for this uncertain future. But at the same time, they are also spending money on themselves and their loved one so that they can live today without regrets.
I see.
Okay.
All right.
So I think this trend somehow reflects the spending patterns of a young woman nowadays.
Okay. It's good to know that these young women are not just a passive taker of what is given to them, but very active responders to the situation. It looks like a tall order to win the hearts of young female consumers. So, Professor Kim, let's talk about the marketing side of this phenomenon. How can we take full advantage of those new trends and these very unique appetites and styles of young women in South Korea?
So I think that in general, this young generation grew up with the internet, and as a result of that, they are often posting things on their social media profiles and things like that. So I think that in that sense, in order to kind of attract this key future consumer group, they have different businesses need to find ways to attract these young consumers by making these areas where it seems social media friendly, where they can take pictures. They're not just there to to develop and build social capital, but they're also taking pictures there and creating memories, right? And so in that sense, I think that that's important. And also, as I mentioned earlier, young people are spending more on self-care. And so there are a lot of salad specialty stores and gyms that are also trying to attract young consumers. Stimulating foods are also an important part, and so a lot of restaurants with specific types of foods but are also attractive, have a certain theme, can also work as a marketing strategy.
Sports fashion trends and consumptions go hand in hand, our reports indicate. They make this world more diverse in consumer appetite and more pioneering in spirit in trying new things. This is all for today. We'll be back next week with more trending issues. Professor, thank you so much for sharing your insights and analysis. That was really fun.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for watching, and goodbye.